Welcome to the Trusted Advisor Show. In this week's episode, we have Ryan Staten and Devin Walsh with Staten Walsh share some powerful business valuation tips and strategies, and also reveal the secret to knowing what your business is really worth and why this just may be the most important decision you ever make for your future success. Coming up right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Trusted Advisor Show. My name is Rob Jacoman, and I'm your host, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Ryan and Devin with Staten Walsh. And today we have a very hot topic. That's my famous words, hot topic. It really is. We're going to talk today about business valuation. And one of the things, obviously, you guys know, the whole premise and the whole reason why we started the Trusted Advisor Show was to really focus on small business owners who are dealing with a lot of issues that we can actually provide some value and some help with and help make a positive impact. This is one of those, and this particular topic is no exception. We've talked about this at length and all the benefits that it has to a business owner. And you know, the whole concept of business valuation is such a critical element that I think a lot of business owners either forget about or they probably know they should do it, but just for some reason, it always gets put on the back burner. So I'm wondering, can you guys shed some light on what's the value and the benefit of a company or business doing a business valuation?
Yeah, I mean, so just to bring some light to some of those things that you talked about, I guess put some numbers and some statistics behind that. About 98% of businesses in the United States actually don't know their value as it stands today. The 2% are representing the traditional large public companies, ones that are doing public financial reporting. So their values are out there, they're readily accessible and available. Mm-hmm. But what we're finding is that most businesses are considered small business by most standards. And so a lot of those ownership structures have not actually taken the time to look in and see what is my business actually worth as a privately held company. So one of the things that we like to talk to them about is how do we shed light on that? That tends to be the first step or the first domino in a series of other things that need to be done to help make your business more efficient so that at some later date you can sell it on your own terms, or that so if somebody comes in with the right price, you know what it's worth, and you can have some foundation to stand on there to figure out what it actually means to you.
Well, you're bringing up really several different points and some unique things that we want to dive deeper into. One of them is why it's important. It's one thing to say, hey, you really need a business valuation done. But it's really another thing to say, what are the benefits of it? Because I think we're going to break this up into a few sections. We're going to talk about what, we want to dive deeper into what business valuation, like the elements of it. What is it? What makes a good business valuation? We also want to talk about specific examples. Like, I want you guys to share some examples of real situations that you've run across. And then the last piece I want to talk about is why business owners, it's important to have an exit strategy. Like, you may not know right now what's going to happen with your business or what you want to have happen, but at least starting the planning process. I put you guys in touch with a couple of clients who, I know that they're in a transitional period, and it's never a bad time to start planning for these things. I agree. So Devin, if you want to share a little bit more about why it's important to have a business valuation done.
I think one of the biggest reasons is leverage. When you know the value of your business and you're kind of demanding that price rather than somebody else coming in and asking, hey, your business worth this, I'll give you X amount. But you already know that amount, gives you complete leverage. Perfect example. Ryan and I just went through this actually with my father's business. He had an offer for the business. It was about half of what he wanted to sell it for. We did the business valuation about 8 months before the sale happened. I was able to get about probably almost $200,000 more than what the original offer was because of the business valuation, because it gave him the leverage to kind of go out there and say, hey, here's the financials behind it. Here's the exact metrics and KPIs that actually went into the business valuation, and kind of gave him the control to come to the table and say, hey, here's what my business is worth. Let's work off this number rather than just the revenue of the company.
Now, is that a common thing that you guys see? Do you often see that either business owners, they don't know what their business is worth, either because they're in some delusion about what the business is worth, or because they just, they're undervaluing potentially what it's worth?
Rob, I think a lot of people know what the revenue of the business is. Let's say it's a $10 million business. They know they're bringing $10 million a year into the business. So they go, oh, my business is probably worth around $10 million. Let's go off that number. There's so much more criteria that goes into that valuation that determines the true value. Sometimes it might only be $5 million. How much cash is really in the business? How much debt's in the business? Do they own property? Who's the key people? If the key person, an employee, is an employee and they bring 80% of the revenue to the company, and during the sale, that person's like, I don't like the new owners, I'm going to leave, or 80% of the business goes away. So that's a huge factor in the valuation of a company. It's just so many more things rather than just the revenue.
And we're going to also do some other videos on and podcasts on that very topic about when you're talking about key employees, because that's a whole nother area of obviously expertise for you guys, but also it's a whole nother area that we can dive deeper into. That's a very critical piece of business planning. So as far as you brought up a really good point, and that is, just because the business is bringing in, say, use arbitrarily 10 million, right? Just because you're bringing in $10 million a year doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the business is worth, or it could be worth a multiple factor of that.
Exactly.
When you talk about,
absolutely.
I'm not a financial guy, right? So when you're talking about EBITDA or anything like that, it makes my head spin or my eyes glaze over. And
it's a buzzword now. It's a buzzword.
It's a buzzword, I guess, in the banking and financial world. But do you guys want to shed some light on, Ryan, do you want to talk about why, for example, using that example, 10 million, right? You have a business, on paper, it's bringing in 10 million in revenue, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's worth that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like Devin said, there's a lot of other factors that play into that. Profitability is huge, obviously. Businesses that bring in $10 million and have no profit are not businesses that they can be sold, but we have to take into consideration the fact that, there's not a lot of money left over at the end of the day. So it's not an income producing asset for the person coming in behind you, which is what a lot of people are looking at. We live in a world of M&A, mergers and acquisitions. It's hot right now. There's tons of private equity firms out there that are trying to buy up different types of businesses. And the type of business that you're in also plays a role in that valuation. So we work with a lot of construction and contractors. We know in some circumstances that can be a lower margin business depending on what sector you're in or what specialty you're in. But we also have to look at the fact that that's industry standard. So we don't want to discount your value or your pricing based on that, because that's par for the course. Whereas in service-based businesses, you're seeing those EBITDAs and those margins on the front end and on the back end tend to be higher. So one of the things that we have detailed conversations about with owners of businesses is, what industry are you in and what's common for a sale multiple? Once we come down to a final number, what's a reasonable multiple for you based on the industry that you're in, not just the fact that you're a small privately owned company.
Yep.
So that is huge. EBITDA, like you said, it gets thrown around a lot and it's a buzzword. Some people know what it means, some don't. But ultimately, there's a laundry list of things that we go through. Concentration is also important in terms of customer base. Diversification, we're obviously financial guys. That's a term that also gets thrown out into the universe. Right. Diversification, we're not talking about investments here. We're talking about revenue streams. So where do you make your money? How do you go about acquiring business, and how sticky is that business? Because it is an asset sale in terms of a business is the biggest asset that any owner will ever have in their life, not investments, not other, it could be partially real estate as well, but that's the most valuable thing that you're going to own. And so you have to position it in a way, and you have to paint a picture that makes the person on the other side of the table that's buying that business from you, whether it could be your kids, it could be some random person off the street that's or a competitor, for
Mhm.
example. We have to paint a picture that shows them that the business is valuable today and will continue to be valuable based on a key list of metrics that you have available to you. You just may not have pulled those out and separated them to tie it to the value of your business.
So that is another critical piece of all this. So there's a couple things going through my mind that I think are going to be segues to other episodes, other topics that we're going to cover, because we could dive really deep into this. There's a couple things though I want to highlight. So you made a distinction between different types of businesses and their model, right? That's probably, if I were just an average business person out there, it's probably important to know that not all dollars are created equal.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is your business model is predicated on, the whole valuation is predicated on your business model being either a recurring model, or like in the case of a service-based business where it's a recurring stream of revenue, that in and of itself has value, or maybe a construction business where, not only there's some tangible physical assets, right? Equipment and capital, all that capital investment in that business. But then on the flip side, it's less recurring.
Sure.
Because maybe you're going out for bid on things and it becomes like a, project by project thing. So is when you're thinking about, and what we're also going to dive into, and don't let me forget this, is your thought process, the metrics. You use the word metrics, which is one of those things that gets thrown around too. I want to go through a real live example with you guys.
Okay.
But first and foremost, I want you to shed some light on the difference between business models and why that's important for valuation purposes.
I'll take that one. I think in a lot of respects, it has to do with, again, it all boils down to kind of ease of making money and what kind of income is going to be produced from that business, the different models. And so to use a perfect example, $10 million construction company, and when we've worked with some of those in the past, their valuations can be the same as a $3 million service business. And the reason is their model and how client acquisition is a big one. So what's the cost of doing that? In the construction world, you have to hire estimators and people that go out and bid jobs. That's an additional cost. Whereas when you're in a service-based business like our business, the bidding process of acquiring clients, it occurs with us. So it's kind of all, you can wrap that into one. So your key people or your revenue generating people in your business can be, multi-purpose, I guess.
And depending on the products and services you're offering can be a recurring revenue model. For example, in the insurance world, everyone needs to buy insurance, right? Every business needs to have coverage. And therefore, if you do a great job as a trusted advisor and you retain that business, it becomes a recurring revenue stream year after year after year that you can rely on, which then if you turn around and want to go sell, it becomes more valuable to that potential buyer of that of that business. So is that kind of the thought process that you guys go through when you're also considering, because every industry is different. Like you can look at tech.
Sure.
Something that is, and there's so many ideas that are going through my head because like we could go in so many different directions, but you can see every business is different. Like for example, technology, your entire business might be contingent on a technology product that may be obsolete in 10 years.
Exactly.
Sure.
So you're constantly having to innovate. So maybe that's not as valuable as say a brick and mortar type of business that is it's more tangible. It's more long lasting. It's more perpetual in nature and its model. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. I think that is, you hit the nail on the head with that. It is very, it can be industry dependent and it can also be dependent on the business at the local level too. It also depends on the market that you're in as well. Baltimore, Washington corridor is a completely different animal compared to the rest of the country. You have the federal government right in our backyard. There's a lot of state government work that exists here. So the government, I believe the statistics are the government employs like 30% of the state's population. Yep. So you also have to understand that when we're talking nationwide and we're working with clients that are in Indiana, the conversation might be a little bit different. So we do have to get granular in a sense, throwing a blanket on top of it and saying the entire construction industry works this way or the entire tech industry works this way, because in this area, for example, where we are, it's a lot easier. Well, I won't say a lot easier, but the contracts and the recurring revenue and the business that's available there, you can cast a much wider net as opposed to being in Indianapolis, or if you're in, Montana, for example, or something.
So it does vary by region as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's a great segue into let's use a real live example, right? So let's say, walk me through your process. So I'm a business owner and I've never had a business valuation done. And I've been operating for, let's say 10, 15 years. And I've never gone through this process. I've got a very healthy bottom line. I've got, 20 employees, and I've got a combination of a recurring model, but also some things where I'm selling, one-off products. Where would you start and I came to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where would you start the conversation? Talk through your process for how you assess and analyze with your model and your process. Talk about how that's unique for me and my business.
So the very first question that we ask any business owner, what do you think it's worth?
Mm-hmm.
That's our starting point always, because we want to get an idea of what your expectations are. It's also an educational moment for us. We can kind of put something up on the board and say, all right, I get it. This is what you think it's worth. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to dig into the numbers and we're going to figure out if that's actually true. So we start there. We get a little bit more information. We'll ask them a little bit about their business, how they get business, how they retain business. Are there any key people that are responsible for the revenue that's generated for your business, whether it's you or someone else? Then we talk about concentration, how much of your business comes from your top 3 customers. We use industry codes as well as zip codes for geography, some of those other points I just made. So we have a questionnaire that we go through. It's
pretty granular. It sounds pretty granular. Intensive.
It is. And so we try to keep it high level when we're in the meetings with the business owners, because part of our job as trusted advisors we want to take things off of your plate. We don't want to add work to the mix. So we have implemented technology. We've implemented some efficiencies in our process where we can do those things, sometimes electronically.
Mm-hmm.
We can have your key people like a CFO. We can delegate and have them enter important financial information directly into the system. Or you can send us your financial statements. That would include, a past 2 to 3 years of tax returns. So we'll work with your CFO or your CPA or whoever has access. Smaller businesses, the owners usually just pass that along to us.
Mm-hmm.
We pick out the necessary information from that. We plug it in to our system, and then we do some mapping based on where you are and what industry you're in. It takes some statistics of using publicly available information, and then it spits out a number. So that's where we start. So what we do is we take all of that information, we populate
all those metrics, all those factors that are unique to that business.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And Devin, I want to dive into your parents' situation too, because that's a real live example.
Yeah.
So it's an intensive process, which I think is going to be, it's going to be valuable for us to share more, because I'm like a more hands-on kind of thinker. And I know a lot of people who are watching too, or listening, they want to hear more examples of things because it applies to, how does this apply to my life and my business, right? So, Devin, in the case of your parents' business, so I'm not sure that this is something like your dad thought about 30 years ago or when he first started the business.
Not at all.
But
and that's
how did this come up where, I guess he was getting to the stage where, and here's my segue. When you're a business owner and you've got a few different directions to start planning for example, you might be getting closer to retirement where you're like, hey, listen, I want to either pass this legacy on to my children, or I want to sell to either a competitor or someone who's interested in taking it to the next level, or whatever the case may be, whatever the goal is, having an exit strategy or a plan in place when that time comes is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Is that something that maybe your parents learned a lesson from, like not going through that process?
Absolutely, Robin. I think it's very similar to what a lot of other business owners experience. So he's always had that number in his head.
Mm-hmm.
He had that number. He's like, all right, my whole retirement plan is based off this number. To the first valuation, I guess it was 2 years ago, and it wasn't that number. And he was confused. Like, I've waited my whole life and ready for this number. So we did it again about 8 months ago, and it was a little closer to the number because I had a couple good years in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows you, if you do this consistently on a year-to-year basis, do a valuation with us every single year, it shows you the growth of your business, but it also helps when you want to exit the business, how your life's going to look after that. Because if you have this number in your head, hey, I want to live off this for the rest of my life because my business is going to be worth X.
Yep.
And that day happens and it's worth half of X, your retirement and your exit plan is going to be completely different than what you envision your entire life while you're building this asset.
It could be a big surprise.
It's a very big surprise.
So
it could be good or bad. It could be 10. It could be 10 times that, 10x as you would like to say.
Yeah, right. 10x.
Guy.
But even a small movement of say 20%, like if you undervalue your business by 20%,
huge.
that could be the difference between you actually retiring
Absolutely.
in a comfortable way or
Hold on to business a
being
couple
like,
more
wait a
years
minute, I can't retire yet, or I can't even, this isn't worth anything,
Absolutely.
really. Or I'd have to break it up. So that's a really another interesting segue is when a business owner is assessing their future and their plan, when is the right time to start planning an exit strategy?
Now.
The day you open your doors.
But I don't think a lot of business owners are thinking that way, right?
No.
They're not thinking like they're all excited about starting their business and they're going gangbusters. But if you were to come to me and say, go through this whole process, you're like, well, why would I want to do that now when I'm not even ready? I'm not even there. Like I'm not mentally there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, we want to, it's a shift in mindset. I always say when people ask that question and say the day that you open your doors, and the first number is not going to be pretty. It's not designed to be pretty. Look,
Mm-hmm.
1 or 9 out of 10 small businesses fail in the United States. So we understand that the concentration of the small business owner is growing the business and staying in business. So we want to make sure that we show you, the value is it's a number on a page, but the way we go about the valuation process is we want to give context to that number and say, where is that value derived from in your business? Because if you know that and you're equipped with that, even if you're in expansion mode, you hone in on that, and now you're driving the value of your business, which maybe you weren't made aware of that when you were most business owners. If they had been made aware of that when they were building their business, maybe it would look a little bit different today. Maybe that value would be 3, 4, or 5 times what it is if they had that education. So this is very much an educational piece for the front end of kind of being in growth and expansion in your business, as well as on the back end when I say, okay, I've done my work. I'm ready to hang my hat up and move on to the next phase of my life. Tell me what I can get for it. So it works on both in both ways. And the beauty of it is once we get this process started, the monitoring of that gets really easy, and we can actually track value and then start.
Because you're just plugging in.
Yeah,
you have the template, the model of itself, and then you're just basically plugging in numbers. This is becoming a fascinating episode because even I'm learning a lot about this, and now I feel more confident to share with my clients who maybe need to go through this whole process, right? And would derive value from it. You brought up a really interesting point. I think it's going to be a whole segment for another show. And that is, what is the driving, what have you guys have noticed is the driving factor to drive value?
Yeah. So it usually, be honest with you, businesses are about the people that are in the business. So usually what we find is that there's a few people that are involved in the business, whether it be you, the owner, developing relationships, or other people like salespeople. We find that's where that tends to be a big driving factor in increasing value in a business. It's also the most neglected area of the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
How do I attract and retain key people in my business, especially in today's labor market, tight labor market, turnover is at all-time high in many industries. Bringing good people in that can help you run your business so that you're not doing everything. We talked in our first episode about being pulled 10 different directions.
Yeah.
Business owners delegate, and good business owners delegate, and they put good people in place.
Yep.
But you want to keep those people. And when you get to a point where you've grown, where you have that structure, that infrastructure, you'll start to realize that without those people, the business kind of goes away.
Yep.
So how do we attract, retain, and keep them happy? Also, they could be a succession plan for you. So if you recognize that early on, or even really at any point in the process, if you can see that and be conscious of that and plan for it, it makes you it also can increase the value of your business down the line. Even if they're not your succession plan, that employee, being able to tie them into your business long-term makes your resale value a heck of a lot higher than if the minute, like Devin said earlier, the minute someone buys a business, you have people that walk out of the door. Efficiency with people, I think, just to summarize all of that, that's like number one that we see that businesses don't recognize. Most of them understand how they're profitable and what a part of their process makes them profitable, but the people are always the kind of the cornerstone of that.
Well, it's the most valuable asset you have is your people. So, I'll tell you why this is so exciting, and why I went down that direction is because if a business owner is able to do evaluation and then hone in, and you guys were able to point out like, hey guys, this is really these two or three things, or this combination of things is really what's driving the value for your business, right? Because every business is unique. Wouldn't that arm the business owner with more valuable information and power, and to be able to help them hone in on driving that value even more by focusing on those top things that are driving the value? Yeah, doesn't that make sense? I mean, that absolutely. To me makes the most sense in the world.
It shows the inefficiencies in the business, and we're able, before the sale of the business, to, like you said, hone in on these certain areas and make them perfect.
Yeah.
Tighten them up. So now you have a much longer runway for when you go to the sales table to be able to come back and say, without having anything there for them to come back at you and say, hey, this is going to drive the valuation down. So to have those things buttoned up early on it's key, and it's extremely important.
Yeah, because if you're pointing out certain things, you probably know that, you can point out like, hey, you guys are bleeding cash out the back end over here because of this. If you were to, really funnel all of your resources, all of your talent, all of your energy into this area, it's going to take your business from here up to, here very quickly in a shorter period of time. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the advantages, I think, of going through this process. Sure. And listen, if you've got a business and you've never gone through this process, we have so much more we could cover, but I wanted to make sure that we did more of a higher level 30,000 foot view of business valuation. And, and certainly people can reach out to you guys and learn more. And I know you guys do like initial complimentary business valuation sort of analysis. Do you want to talk a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah. So we're actually in the process of setting up where we're going to have, online access through our website and the portal. Awesome. Where businesses or business owners that are interested in that can go pre-populate some information, get a preliminary number back, and then we kind of follow up with a consultation to tighten up that valuation document, or at least an initial proposal for them. So, we are doing that at this point. It's our way of kind of giving back to the business community and trying to make people aware and educate businesses in the area and nationally what your business is worth, and see how we can be of assistance to help continue to drive that value for you. So if anyone has any questions about that, they can reach out to us individually, or coming soon, we will have the ability to do that on our website without any direct contact with us, at least initially.
Yeah, and at the very least, we're providing some added value to business owners, and there's certainly, and obviously it's a plug for you guys, which is fine. It's not necessarily, there's no obligation whatsoever for anyone to avail themselves of your services. For example, anyone, if you feel like there's a trusted advisor that you feel comfortable with sharing, at least they can reach out and ask for another opinion from you guys.
Absolutely.
That, hey, could you come in here and take a look at what we're doing? I think it's extremely valuable. So listen, as we wrap up here, what is one final gold nugget that you guys can offer? Devin, and you can go first. What's one gold nugget we can all leave with today that someone, and this is why we do this. This is part of our show. Every single episode, we want to share one piece of wisdom, one gold nugget that someone could actually take action on in their business and get some results. Devin, what is one thing based around this topic that someone could tomorrow take action on and start to derive some results from it?
I think the biggest thing is just start now. As simple as that, whether it's with us or somebody else. I know everything we talk about today sounds very cumbersome and it's going to take a lot of time, but that's what we're here for. We're here to take all that pressure off of you and take all your financials and be able to do that on the back end so you can still sit there and run your business and make it as efficient, as effective, and best as possible. So let us do the work for you or your current advisor, but just get the process started now. Because it's a lot more time consuming if you don't do it now when the sale is ready to happen.
Yep.
You don't have as much control.
Ryan?
Yeah, I would say, if you think you know the value of your business, try again.
That's great. It's simple advice.
I think I know Devin kind of said that, but just to piggyback off of that too, I would say reflect and maybe do an analysis of your human capital in your business and try to figure out if you're really truly appreciating that and if that is a key indicator or driver of value for your business. If it is, I would recommend addressing it immediately. So that would be my 2 cents.
Well, that's great advice. And, certainly there's no downside to anyone knowing the true value of their business. It's absolutely all upside from there. And you know what? Information and that knowledge is power, and you can use it then to your advantage. So, well, listen, as we're wrapping up here, if you like what you're hearing and you want to be part of our show, please subscribe. We love having new subscribers. And as we're continuing to grow our presence and wanting to add even more value to your business and anyone else out there who's listening and watching, we'd love to, have you answer if we can answer any questions for you or, any comments that you have that's going to help us be able to provide more value to you. So again, thanks a lot, everybody. And look forward to the next episode where we're going to be interviewing some very successful business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and other movers and shakers in the industry.
Absolutely. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care.